Hello and welcome to Own Your Health with me, Katie Brindle, the wellness expert you need to know according to Forbes magazine and healer to the stars according to Hello magazine. I'm also an entrepreneur and founder of the Hey You method. So I'm here to help you help yourself. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about ADHD. I'd like to talk to you about our two wonderful sponsors because we don't take on anybody, you know, we're very picky here. So the first sponsor is the Naked Pharmacy. Now, the reason we love working with them so much is because on this podcast, we cover a wide range of health advice. I mean, from any given week, I'm going to be talking to you for anything from shingles to sinusitis to eating chia seed rye bread in order to get good bowel movements in autumn, to decluttering, to a myriad of different things. And you need a partner that can kind of run with you at the same time. And the Naked Pharmacy is just that, because they have supplements for everything, which means whatever topic we're talking about, you can pop over to the Naked Pharmacy and they will have supplements to support this information. Now, not only that, they are very content rich. They have an actual pharmacy, which is what's so great. So just as we as a brand here on Own Your Health are very keen to answer all your questions and to keep the dialogue going with you, to offer the advice as much as just products themselves, the Naked Pharmacy are the same. So they have the products to match the content, but they also have the expertise as well. Now, they cover anything from stress to sleep to mood to energy to gut health to weight management and pretty much everything else besides. So they're also going to give you the support as well. And they're offering us a 20% discount. If you use KT20 at checkout, which is at thenakedpharmacy.com, and you pop in KT20 at checkout, you will get a 20% discount. Our second wonderful partner is Evolve Beauty. And now the reason I love Evolve Beauty is because their lovely founder, Laura Rudo, is very close to my heart in as much as she really looked at something which actually needed to evolve, hence the pun on the name. But actually she needed we all needed to evolve. We needed to come out of chemical-based beauty products, which were bad for our skins, bad for our bodies, bad for our environments, and come up with something which is cruelty-free, which is vegan, which is pregnancy-friendly, which is environmentally friendly, and has a commitment to zero waste production and carbon neutral practices. That is quite the remit. I certainly know from setting up the Hey You method, it is really, really difficult to walk the path of integrity. You are being pulled in every single which direction to kind of cut corners, and you have to kind of really be committed to the evolution of everything in order to actually walk that path. Now, Laura has done just that. So that's exactly what she's doing. And again, with very, very highly clinically tested products, which are really good for the skin and really good for the environment. She is also giving us a bargain. She's giving us 20% off at till point if you put in this time Brindle 20. There are T's and C's that applied, so do please have a look at the description for more details if you need more information. But if you pop over to evolvebeauty.co.uk, you can have a look for yourself and take advantage of the 20% discount. So according to government statistics, about 1.5 million people in the UK suffer from ADHD, but also according to a more recent study done in New York, about 75% of adults who have ADHD are at the moment currently undiagnosed, which means the chances of you knowing somebody who has this condition are extremely high. So I thought it would be a good one to introduce into our feed today. In the meantime, before we go into that, I just want to say a few comments which have come in this week, which are really lovely. So Cream Roses, lovely name, says your tutorial on how to get rid of sagging skin on the chin is really helpful, Katie, and I can see a lift already. Yes. That's what I like to see. I love it. Do send in pics. We do love a good before and after, I tell you. And do just put confidential if you don't want us to share it. Lucy says, I've been using the facial cups from your site. They're brilliant. Thanks for all your top tips. I love a facial cup. They're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. And Emma says, the neck masterclass you did was so good. I purchased that one and it really helped. Good. This is all really positive feedback I like to hear. So let's see if we can work our magic on ADHD as well. So ADHD is basically considered as a behavioural condition, so characterised by restlessness, difficulty concentrating and impulsiveness. The symptoms often emerge in childhood and they often worsen in new environments such as new school years, new jobs, changing schools. And there are also co-occurring conditions which are often linked to sleep disorders and anxiety. And often you will find adult ADHD will get diagnosed later on in life because it wasn't picked up or identified in childhood. So that's what we're dealing with. So what does Chinese medicine have to say about all this? Well, the really useful thing about how Chinese medicine diagnoses anything is because it always comes back to the way that I always say, if you want to own your health, there are these 3 things you need to know. And I go through this in my very first episode, which I would urge everyone to listen to, because it kind of sets out the framework for how I then describe things. So there's 3 things you need to know. 1, the body needs to have a smooth flow of energy, which is qi and blood, flowing smoothly, permanently around it. Okay, that's the first thing. And it goes wrong because modern life doesn't really allow that to happen. So that's the first problem issue. The second, the body needs to purge and nourish. What does that mean? That means you need to let go of all the toxins and all the old nitty-gritty stuff you don't long. It's like a plumbing system. And then you need to allow the new fresh energy and food and nutritions and thought processes and experiences to come through. And then the final one, and this is key, is you need to strengthen and balance the 5 key organs. Now, normally I just say strengthen, but in the case of ADHD, I've added in balance, because Chinese medicine is always about creating harmony and balance. And in the case of ADHD, that is really, really what we're looking at. Because with ADHD, we will treat this disease condition, just like we would treat any other condition, via the 5 key organs. Now, what are the 5 key organs? For those of you that hang on my every word, you're about to go on, say it and impress your friends right now. Go on, let's go through them in turn. The heart, the spleen, the lungs, the kidney, and the liver. Those are the 5 key organs according to kind of ancient Chinese medicine. Now, pretty much all of those organs get caught up with ADHD. Less so the lungs really, but the other ones particularly. Now, so therefore, it's quite common because it hits 4 of those 5 key organs. So you've got 4/5 of a chance of this working out like this. So what are they? The first is the liver. Now, the liver is very much about managing the smooth flow of qi and blood, qi being energy, around the body. So what happens is when that doesn't happen, and there's reasons why it doesn't happen: over-sedentary lifestyle, overuse of phones, not enough exercise, not enough walking around, because we sort of we sit on transport now rather than walking from where we're going, or riding a horse in the olden days, or walking or riding a bike. We tend to sort of use more sedentary transportation, and then we're on our phones too much and our devices. And those devices are feeding information at breakneck speed into the body. And the key thing about the liver is the liver opens into the eyes. So if you're spending a lot of time on screens, that's going to start agitating the liver. The liver likes to be calm. It likes to be smooth. It likes to look at the horizon. Not many of us look at the horizon anymore. There's not much of a horizon if you live in a city. You've just got buildings everywhere. And therefore, the liver likes to kind of go over. It's like we're going in this direction. When I do creative thinking, because the liver's a lot about creativity, I always talk about the North Star. And apparently the team here have adopted this. And they also talk about their North Stars, because I have to go up if I'm going into creation, I've got to think about what's the North Star doing up there. But we don't get the North Star. We're down here on our phones with images going flash, flash, flash. And we're in vehicles where things are going up to 70 miles an hour. So things are going flash, flash, flash. And I always say to patients in my clinic, you only need to watch the first episode of Downton Abbey to get a sense of where we were this time about 100 years ago. And it was a heck of a lot slower than it is now. So it's affecting your livers. And livers then don't start harmonizing correctly. They start to become impulsive. They become irritated. They become over-energized. They become hyperactive. So that's the very first organ that we're looking at, and it's under siege. We're looking at our phones from the minute we wake up to the minute we go to sleep. The images are piling in. The calls to action are piling in. Apparently now we get a minimum of 5,000 messages a day being thrown at us in terms of advertising and information, as opposed to about 100 this time 100 years ago. That's how quick things are now coming in at us. And so the amount that our liver has to absorb from our eyes is probably the primary culprit as to why ADHD is so common now, as opposed to something, okay, perhaps it was not diagnosed, but it just simply wasn't something that was as prevalent as it is to this day. So the liver is the first organ. The second is the heart, because the heart is very much about the control of emotions. The heart is very much the hub of the emotional body in the body. It's something we call in Chinese medicine the Sheng. And the Sheng is held in the blood. And it's basically the emotional support that your body needs. And if you're finding that your emotions, rather than running smoothly, which is what they do in a harmonized body, they're getting a bit sort of jaggedy. They go like this, which is this sort of hyperactivity. Now, what's happening is that the heart isn't calm. Now, why not? Well, because the heart's agitated. Why? Because of the pace of life. So the problem with modern day society, which is great in so many ways, is that no 2 days tend to be the same. For bodies to be really happy and balanced, the body and the heart wants everything to basically do the same thing at the same time every day. So interestingly, I'm recording this episode having just been away. And one of the things I said to myself when I got to where we went, which was quite a quiet place, and there wasn't loads to do, which suited me just fine, by the way. I said, right, I'm going to put myself in a 2-week routine, and I'm basically going to do the same thing at the same time every day. Oh, it was heaven. Absolute heaven. Everything balanced in my body. All of my usual sort of things that go wrong, balanced. I ate at the same time, I exercised at the same time, I was outside at the same time, I was in nature, and I basically allowed my body to go into a natural process that I talk about. So before we get into today's episode, I wanted to highlight to you a couple of these brilliant sponsors that we have. So we're really picky about who we partner with, because I want to make sure that when I'm partnering and promoting something here to you, my audience, that I endorse it wholeheartedly, and I genuinely think it's in your interest to know about it. So let's talk about Meda. Now, Meda Skincare was set up in 2009 by Dr. Tina Meda. And the reason I love this brand so much is because it's really very much focused on finding holistic and natural solutions to your skincare. And she has a few really cool, iconic products. The first one, which is the one that she started with, which is this probiotic exfoliating Enzy peel mask. What it does is it works in conjunction with the microbiome on your skin. Now, this is really important because most of my audience is sort of 40 plus. So anyone that's 40 plus is likely to have put chemicals on their skin over the years, because that was the skincare that we were sort of introduced to in the bad old days of the 20th century. Now, that's not great, because when you strip the microbiome off your skin, what happens is then that gets replaced by a whole load of chemicals. And that's not great, because basically everything's stripped off and chemical dependent. So what happens with this Enzy peel mask is that it basically supports the health and diversity of your skin's beneficial bacteria. Now, this is important because I'm talking to you about this in the autumn. And autumn is very much a time of the metal element, which is to do with your lungs and your large intestine and the immune system. And microbiome, which sits on the surface of the skin and is not to be stripped off, has a direct relationship with the lungs, because the skin is the second lung. And the lungs, in turn, have the secondary organ of the large intestine, which is where vast quantities of this microbiome are hosted within the body. And this is all the good bacteria. This is all the good stuff. So we really don't want to be stripping this stuff out. So Meda has a brilliant quiz which will help you establish exactly what it is that you need to be adding to your skincare routine. But the hero product that she launched with back in 2009, which sort of got her into the public space, is very much this Enzy peel mask, which is probably the thing that I use the most, and I really, really enjoy using, and you can really feel it sort of working into the skin. So a brilliant, brilliant brand. I really, really endorse this brand. I think it works very much as regular skincare, but also treatment skincare as well. And I'm all in favour of regulating the biome back into your skin if you've been using chemicals. Now, the next thing, kidneys. The kidneys are responsible for concentration. And if the kidneys are getting exacerbated by the excessive stress response, which is constantly coming at us, in through the eyes, in through our atmosphere, this chronic fight or flight that all of us are dealing with on a minute-to-minute basis, not including if you're gaming or watching, not all games, obviously, but if you're watching kind of violent games, or you're sort of doing that as a hobby, or you're watching things like Game of Thrones, or, I don't know, box sets, which are so realistic now. Artificial intelligence and cinema is now so realistic. It's very, very difficult for your body to actually differentiate between what's real and what isn't. Okay, so therefore what's happening is your kidneys are going into permanent states of fight or flight, which means they're getting weakened by the reality of living the modern day life that we have, which in turn affects its concentration. And then finally, the spleen. Now, the spleen is very much about emotional balance. It's about grounding. It's about ensuring that the body is held and that your emotional well-being is held, supported in the actual physical structure of your body. And if your eating is irregular, or you're eating the wrong foods, which so many of us are, or you're eating ice in drinks or things out the fridge, or just generally irregular, wrong foods, wrong seasonal foods, not organic, blah, 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 it's going to affect the spleen. So therein lies why ADHD is such an issue. But the good news is that now we understand what the problem is. As I say to everyone in my clinic, 50% of the solution is understanding the problem. So we've just 50% solved the ADHD issue by understanding what the problem is sitting there underpinning the issue, which is basically 4 of your 5 key organs are getting massively impacted by just being alive right now and just living in a normal way, which is having to cope, having to do different things on different days, not necessarily eating at the same time, not necessarily getting enough exercise, having to be on your phones, using digital devices for recreational purposes. These are things that we're all doing. It's normal. Okay, so what we have to do is realize that it might be normal, but it's not good for you. So we've got to counterbalance it. So what do we do? Well, the good news is there are some basic things that you can do. So the first thing I would recommend everyone does is some really simple technique: horizon gazing. What's that? It's really easy. Even if you're in an office, we're in this kind of blacked out studio right now, but all you need to do is put a picture on the wall of a horizon, a view. That will do the trick. Because as long as your liver's got something to look at that looks like a horizon, that will work. Okay, so that's the first thing to do. If you're lucky enough to live in the country and there is a horizon, look at it. And make sure if you're having long periods of time on your screens, that you look away from your screens and look to the distance and do some deep breaths. One of the other free techniques I talk about a lot is this lovely Gong app by Mindfulness Bell. There are other ones. And for the mere price, James is about to play his, he loves it. I'm just about to say, James loves getting his Gong out. Go on, James. That can play every 15 minutes, and it's £2 a year to choose your Gong sound. It's free if you just take their Gong, but I don't like their Gong as much as mine, so I pay £2. And that rings every 15 minutes. And when it rings, it reminds me to breathe. So all you do when that bell rings every 15 minutes, breathe in slowly, linger at the top of the breath, breathe out slowly, linger at the bottom of the breath. Now what that does is it relaxes all the stress response in the body, allows the heart to calm because the heart is controlled by the rhythm of breath. It allows the spleen to relax, it allows the kidneys to relax. And then if you close your eyes whilst you do that breath, you're relaxing the liver from all of the endless stimulation that's coming at it because the liver opens to the eyes. So it's a really easy way to allow the whole body to calm down. And if you set it for every 15 minutes, you'd be amazed at the end of a day how much calmer you feel. Now, the other thing we need to do is ensure that the energy and the blood flow are moving smoothly around the body. So this is why I talk about body tapping with the tapper and body patting with the dry body brush. You can use a loosely clenched fist, you can use a cupped hand, you can use fingertips, you can use the tools which are on the Hey You method, but tapping all over the body will really, really help regulate this flow of energy, regulate the stress response, regulate all this agitated energy which is coming into the body and creating the symptoms. The other really easy technique you can do, which is one of the basic things I teach, is shaking. Shaking the body, which is completely free and requires nothing more than just moving yourself. You can even do it in a chair, okay, like this, is really good for getting that energy moving through the body. So every time you hear that gong, it gives you an opportunity to just give your moment a sort of punctuation of self-care there and then, which will make a massive difference to your symptoms. The other thing that you can do is use ear seeds. I wouldn't recommend doing any products until you've done the basic stuff that I've talked about. Making sure that you're doing the shaking, the tapping, the drumming, the breathing. Do those things first. Once you've got those bedded in and you're getting the hang of them, then I would buy some ear seeds. I wouldn't do it first because you've got to get this basic level of the smooth flow of energy moving around the body first. Because if you go in further up the food chain, you probably won't get the best, you are unlikely to get the best results. That's one of the things that I've actually noticed being in the old self-care game and having been a therapist for many years and running a clinic, is that one of the problems that we have is largely because of the witch hunt and the fact that all of our sort of heritage got sort of burnt at the stake, literally, because it went down with them, is that we've lost the kind of overall perspective of the big picture. And people come at me all the time going, oh, I've tried acupuncture and would ear seeds help? And what about gua sha? And what about this? And what about body magnets? And what about this supplement? And what about something? And it's very piecemeal. And one of the things that I love to talk about on the podcast is just pulling it all back together and going, right, you've got to get the basics in place first. Just like anything, if you want to read Shakespeare, you need to know how to read ABC. And you need to do Kipper and Biff, isn't it? Is it Kipper and Biff we did with our kids? Yeah, Kipper and Biff, right? You've got to do that first. You're never going to get to Shakespeare unless you've done Kipper and Biff, right? So it's the same thing with your body. You need to get this low-level energy, this stagnation, this irritation, this stress moving so that the body can excrete. And then you can start adding extra things like a castor oil compress at night over the liver. Really, really beneficial. But you've got to do the breathing and the shaking as well. Now, the other thing, having done these basic things like shaking, tapping, drumming, adding a castor oil compress. Now, castor oil compress is really easy. It's literally what I call self-care while you sleep. Now, castor oil compressing is ancient. The reason you're thinking, oh, I've never heard of that. Why have I never heard of it, Katie, if it's so brilliant? Because castor oil is quite sticky, therefore it can be quite messy. And to be honest with you, before this compress came out, even I wasn't doing it that often because it was a bit of a fag. And it was just like, to me, if it's not easy, then I'm not necessarily going to do it religiously. Now, the compress now makes it easy. This is the one that we sell on Hey You Method, which is the Castor Vida one. It's soft on one side and really grease-proof on the other. And what you do is you put a little bit of the castor oil, which is this stuff here, you pour it onto the compress, about 2 tablespoons into the middle, and then sort of squeeze it like that. And then you put it on at night. So you put it on, this is where I do my air hostess bit, you put it on around your middle and you tie these things with a double bow around your middle, okay? No, it doesn't come with a whistle or some blow up thing either. But basically, you put this on and then you go to bed. Now, what this does is it helps draw out the toxins out of your liver, okay? Now, your liver is one of the primary organs which is getting caught up with the symptoms of ADHD. But everybody needs to be doing this. Most of us have got liver issues because our livers are just overwhelmed with the amount of toxins, the amount of fast-flowing images coming into our eyes, the amount that we have to process, all the same thing. You may not have ADHD. Okay, it may not be manifesting like that, but I guarantee if you're alive right now in the 21st century, your liver is under siege. And the castor oil compress is a really, really easy way to offset that. You don't have to do anything. You just pour a bit of oil onto this thing, put it around your tummy or around your liver and go to sleep. It also helps with sleep, which is also a really important self-care factor anyway. So everyone should be doing this. Castor oil compressing is amazing. There's loads of information on that on my website, and we can talk about that on another day. So those are the key things that I would suggest you do. The other thing I would suggest is before you go to sleep at night, do foot bathing. Another amazing self-care technique that I talk about all the time. It not only massively helps for sleep, but foot bathing particularly is really, really good for strengthening the kidneys before you go to bed. And your kidneys are one of the main organs for concentration, which is why they get caught up with the ADHD symptoms. And also what happens is kidneys are massively responsible for your sleep quality. Okay, so foot bathing before bed at night, also really good. Again, loads of information on all of my different channels about foot bathing as well. So I don't want to go too much into that now, otherwise I get a bit sidetracked. But last but by no means least is if you're interested in some body magnets, which is another self-care tool which I have on the website and I rave about them because you can use the magnets forever. You just have to buy replacing plasters. And even the plasters, I did a bit of a challenge on these magnet plasters. I put one on some really obvious places where I wash my hands regularly. And honestly, they stayed on my body for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and that was me living my life and doing my stuff. Okay, so these plasters last a long time. Obviously, you want to change them a little bit more regularly than that. I was just trying things out because that's my job. But basically, there are a bunch of really useful points. Now, I don't really want to read them out in a podcast because you'll be sitting there going, stomach 36, liver 3, what's she talking about? So we have a really comprehensive fact sheet on my website on ADHD. And on that fact sheet, there's a bit more information as well, and also a list of really useful acupressure points so that if you were to come into my clinic for acupuncture, those would be the points that I'd be orbiting about and charging you 80 quid. So for free, you can just go and buy yourself some body magnets and some extra plasters and you can knock yourself out and whack them on yourself because they're really easy to find. We also have a sheet on my website somewhere, and I'm looking at James going, can they put the URL or whatever for where that is, of all of the key acupressure points where you need to put the body plasters with me showing you exactly where they are. I've done videos demonstrating how to find these key points. They're really easy to find. There's no great mystery. You don't have to be a qualified acupuncturist to find out where lung 4 is. It's easy, okay? So I've done all that work for you as well. So actually, to be honest with you, I can't make it any easier. I mean, literally. And the other thing that I do, aside from putting all this content out there for you as much as I possibly can, I also lead a class on a Tuesday morning on Instagram, and I run this thing called the Healing Circle through my community. So I literally do the practices with you as well. So unless I literally move into your house and just like make you do it by like getting you out of bed and saying, come on, get up, which I can only do for one person. This is about as close as I can get to actually helping you every step of the way. So today we've just basically done a really interesting deep dive into ADHD. Thank you so much for listening and watching. If you're on Apple or Spotify, do please share this with your nearest and dearest, because the more you share, the more we can get this content out to people that need it, because there are 1.5 million people in this country that need it, not to mention 75% of undiagnosed people as well. So there's lots of people out there that need to know about these wonderful techniques, many of which are completely free, which will help you with this. In the meantime, do please put your comments in the spaces below if you're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok or YouTube. There we go. Just trying to think of all the different platforms and any other platform that we might be on that I've lost space with. And I forgot to mention in the last recording, we also have an email address. So if you would like to email in, it's ownyourhealth@katiebrindle.com. If you would like us to not share your question, then just please write confidential. I take great pride in being able to answer all of the questions indeed that come in. So all of the customer questions that come in, we do our very best to answer every single one, because this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to help you own your health. And the only way we can do that is by sharing our knowledge. So in the meantime, thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you next time.